Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Roberts, Chair of the Washington Association of Professional Anthropologists, also known as WAPA, the 2021 Praxis Award Chair. And I welcome all of you to this virtual 2021 Praxis Award ceremony at the annual meeting of the Society for Applied Anthropology in Salt Lake City. I am a white male with very short hair, sitting at my desk in my office at St. Mary's College of Maryland, and I have several photographs, a batik, and a painting from West Africa behind me. I want to thank you for making time for this important biennial award ceremony that honors anthropologists who demonstrate excellence in translating anthropological knowledge into action. The Washington Association of Professional Anthropologists is the exemplar of a local practitioner organization for anthropologists. Founded in 1976, its membership includes anthropologists at all stages of career development in the Washington, D.C. area and beyond. WAPA has contributed to the professional development and social support for myself and many other anthropologists over the years. WAPA is led by a committed board whose membership has weathered the pandemic well by utilizing Zoom technology, just as we are tonight. And they've held exciting and informative monthly presentations on a wide range of topics. I want to thank the board members as a group for their ongoing support of the Praxis Award. Rob Winthrop, my predecessor and the 2019 Praxis Award chair, was very generous in sharing materials he developed, as well as his time to answer my questions as I took my place as the new Praxis chair this year. I also want to thank members of the 2021 Praxis Award Committee who worked with me to raise awareness about this competitive award and recruit an excellent cohort of anthropologists who submitted applications on a fascinating range of praxis-oriented work. The committee members recruited applicants, reviewed and provided substantive feedback to preliminary applications, and then used the ratings of a group of previously anonymous jurors to reach a decision about this year's winner. Allow me to thank each of the 6 committee members by name. Lori Schwady, recently retired from the U.S. Census Bureau and now newly installed as the treasurer for WAPA. Eleanor King, professor of anthropology at Howard University. Tim Wallace, professor emeritus, Department of Anthropology and Sociology at North Carolina State University. Adam Coons, himself a former Praxis Award winner and former WAPA president, working with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Abigail Conrad, an applied anthropologist working with Results for Development. And Rachel Watkins, biocultural anthropologist, professor at American University. While the committee members reached out to prospective Praxis applicants and provided feedback on pre-application materials that were submitted, the full applications were reviewed and evaluated by a group of 5 previously anonymous jurors, who I also want to thank for their contributions to the work that led to the selection of this year's winners. Irv Chambers, professor emeritus at the University of Maryland, College Park. Stanley Yoder, a medical anthropologist formerly with ICF Macro. Mary Clark, a senior gender consultant for many years with the World Bank. And then finally, 2 jurors who are in fact the founders of the Praxis Award when it was first awarded 40 years ago in 1981. So this is a special ceremony. 40 years of praxis as it now moves into its 5th decade of existence. Robert, or Bob Wolf, is professor emeritus at George Mason University and served as president of WAPA from 1980 to 1981. He co-founded the Praxis Award with his friend and our colleague, Shirley Fisk, who was WAPA president from 1985 to 1986, and is affiliated with the University of Maryland, College Park, after enjoying a long and distinguished career in various positions with the federal government. Bob and Shirley both served as jurors for this year's Praxis Award, and additionally, they were co-editors of the first edition of the excellent book, Anthropological Praxis, Translating Knowledge into Action, published by Westview Press in 1987. Now, this is a perfect segue for introducing three friends and colleagues before I announce this year's Praxis Award recipients. I will first introduce Shirley Fisk, who, with Bob Wolf, as I just said, inaugurated the Praxis Award in 1981. She will share some of her thoughts both about the Praxis legacy and what it has produced, namely a forthcoming edition of a new book that features previous Praxis Award winners. Shirley will then introduce former WAPA president and Praxis chairs Terry Redding and Charlie Cheney, who will talk about their new book, and they will be followed by Ryle Nolan, professor emeritus at Purdue University, who will share some of his thoughts about the book. I will be back with you following Ryle's comments and introduce the co-winners of the 2021 Praxis Award one at a time. The winners, in their turn, will each tell you about their projects and the translation of anthropological knowledge into action. It's my pleasure to welcome Shirley Fisk to this virtual podium.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And this is indeed the 40th anniversary of the first Praxis Award. It's really gratifying to see how Praxis has matured, how it's evolved, and how it continues to find the very best work in professional anthropology. So my acknowledgements: I am an older white lady with short gray hair, talking to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I honor the Tewa and ancestral Puebloan people who lived here before Santa Fe was founded by the Spanish in 1610. So as Bill mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of the Praxis Awards, along with Bob Wolf, to whom I give all the credit, the creative credit, for his vision of a professional practice arm for anthropology and the role of the Praxis Award in promoting it. So why did we create the award? We created the award amidst the enthusiastic and impressive colleagueship of the newly formed WAPA, as Bill mentioned, the upstart local practitioner organization that agreed to be its sponsor. And what Bob and I saw amongst our WAPA colleagues was anthropologists doing incredible applied work outside of academia, working for nonprofits, for various levels of government, industry. But since they were outside of the university, they didn't have the time they weren't able to take the time to actually publish in peer-reviewed literature and showcase their results. Anthropology needed a high caliber example of an excellent professional work for students and young faculty that were starting careers. So to that end, the Praxis Awards it created a record of the value of anthropology for solving problems, clarifying issues, evaluating programs, getting things done better. And these are for audiences other than academics, namely leaders and employers in real world nonprofits, associations, and governments at all levels. So how's the award different? It's really a unique award because one, it values application, values results, and values identification of, quote, finger quotes, the anthropological difference. Also, it's a self-nominating award. Now, that was something that in 1980 was way ahead of its time. I mean, anthropologists are so self-effacing, they never put forward their best work, and practitioners don't have an avenue to do that. So that was another reason we created it. All the nominees have to address at least 4 questions at a minimum. These basic questions have stood the test of time. They're still there today. Who was the client or the sponsor that wanted the work done? What's the role of the anthropologist in the team or in the project? What are the results? These have to be identifiable and verifiable. And finally, the articulation of the anthropological difference, the hardest question for almost every single nominee and application to answer. It's always the shortest one, but it's good when you do identify that. So these days, all of this seems so acceptable, so almost ordinary, but remember, this was 2 decades ago. I mean, it was literally in the 20th century. So, and applied anthropology has come so far since then. So briefly, the first 3 years of Praxis, 81 to 83, resulted in outstanding examples of anthropology translated into action. And there were so many of them that we took the next step and edited Anthropological Praxis, Translating Knowledge into Action, that Bill mentioned. That came out in 87, as he said. Bob and I co-edited the book. It was a work of love and sacrifice, as probably you all know, because we were working full time at the time in our jobs. It was a popular case book in applied circles, and especially the growing number of applied anthropology master's programs that were growing at that particular point in time. And to this day, young anthropologists and more senior ones, they come up to me at meetings and they tell me how important the cases were for their careers, or the chapter winners tell me how our Praxis peer recognition reunited them with their anthropological roots. I mean, this is the award that keeps on giving in terms of gratification. So if Bob and I had one regret in our Praxis careers, it is that we did not get to do a second follow-on volume. And it's only been 35 years since then. And finally, we have a follow-on volume for Praxis. And I'm pleased that Terry Redding and Charlie Cheney have provided the leadership and editorial skills for putting this new volume together. So now I'm going to introduce Terry and Charlie, dear friends and colleagues, who have both been presidents of WAPA in the past, and both have chaired the Praxis Award and been jurors in the past. Terry has also served on the NAPA executive board for many years, and Charlie, longtime member of SFAA, has served on the board, the executive board of SFAA. So I'm ready to have Charlie and have Terry talk a little bit about the book.
Great. Thank you, Shirley. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being with us. I am Terry Redding. I'm a balding white guy with glasses and a bookshelf behind me that has volumes by some of the people you see on the screen here. And with me is Charlie Cheney, who will be correcting me when I misspeak. Just first, the title of our book, sort of coming off of Shirley and Bob's book, is called Profiles of Anthropological Praxis, an International Casebook. As Shirley said, Charlie and I were the editors of this, and it was indeed a labor of love, still is. If all goes well, in May of this year, 2022, the book will be available through Berghahn Press. We are right now just getting the galleys and getting the index together, so it's not quite over the hump yet. I'm very pleased, Charlie and I are both very pleased that over the past 10 years, the book covers the past 10 years from 2009 to 2019 award cycles. All of the 22 projects awarded during that time have agreed to participate. So all of them are there over the 21 chapters. One project was combined. And of course, tonight's awardees will represent the first chapter of the book's next iteration, 10 years hence, which I'm not volunteering for. I just wanted to put that out there. Our book has 6 main sections: economic development, communities in the environment, cultural preservation, health promotion and management, socio-cultural change and adaptation, and policy change. Along with the continental US, Alaska and Puerto Rico are represented, as are India, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Peru, Belize, China, and many other countries. Some of the projects were located in a specific location. Some took in multiple countries. These ranged from shoestring budgets to millions of dollars in funding. And some were team efforts, a very big collaborative effort, whereas others were just the efforts of a lone anthropologist over a number of years. The really important thing that we like about this book is that it will really give readers a sense of what it's like to launch and manage projects. And our book is sort of specifically and explicitly aimed at graduate students, students of all stripes in the social sciences, but mostly late undergraduates and graduate students, to really bring home, give a sense of what it's like to do this kind of work. So we feel it's going to be a really great supplement to the classroom in particular, to really connect the learning and real life experiences. I'll just conclude by saying there's a limited number of hard copies will be available first, but it's mostly going to be an ebook in the $30 to $35 range. If there's enough sales, this will go into a paperback printing. And as was the case with Shirley and Bob's book, all of the proceeds from the book do go into the Praxis Award to fund that. So I would like to now turn over to the author of the very last chapter of the book, which is very fitting, Ryle Nolan, Emeritus Professor of Anthropology at Purdue. Also, I love this affiliated lecturer at University of Cambridge, where you will find him every summer. And he is himself the author of several books, including the Handbook of Practicing Anthropology, which hopefully all of you viewers know well, from 2013. Ryle wrote the afterword for the book. So Ryle, please take it away.
Great, thank you, Terry. Nice to see all of you folks, and hello to everybody out there in the digital world. My name is Ryle Nolan. I am a retired professor from Purdue and sometimes Cambridge. I'm an older Celtic guy with very little hair and baby blue eyes, coming to you from snowy central Indiana on a winter night. This is a great book. I said in the afterword that this is the book that I wished I'd had 50 years ago. It's helpful in answering the kind of questions that I used to get all the time with regularity. They'd say, "You're studying anthropology, that's really nice, but what can you actually do with it?" Well, if that's ever happened to you, now you've got your answer. You give them the book, look them in the eye and say, "Read this." The chapters in this book illustrate what John Van Willigen told us many, many years ago. He said to us, there are no anthropological problems out in the world. There are only people problems. And instead of worrying and staying up at night, wondering whether what you're doing is real anthropology or not, stop thinking about that and start thinking about how you're going to use your anthropology to help those people solve their problems. Anthropology's core strength is finding stuff out and situating what it finds out within a context which is both illuminating and enhancing. And then it renders that understanding three-dimensional and very, very vivid. We're very good at teaching our students to do this. They're all pretty good at it. We're not very good, however, at teaching them what to do with what they know. And so one of the most important things that's going on right now in anthropology, and it's been going on, as Shirley said, for quite a while, but it's gaining momentum, is the documentation of application work through a growing literature of practice. Accounts written by anthropologists working in the field about what it's actually like to solve problems. These accounts are vital to our understanding of how best to use what we know and how to train others to do the same thing. The present volume that we're all talking about here is an excellent example of this. These accounts of anthropological practice are every bit as valuable to our discipline as were the early ethnographies brought back by our disciplinary ancestors from faraway places. Just as those accounts made possible the development of our discipline, today's literature of practice constitutes an important body of what I would call ground truth about how the discipline works out in the world. Documenting our efforts, our attempts, our successes, our failures, lessons learned through a literature of practice is the very best way to ensure that our work has sustainable impact. This book is the latest and, to my mind, one of the very best examples of this literature. I commend it to you. I think you're going to enjoy reading it. It was a great thing to have done. I've enjoyed contributing to it, and I think it will last a long time. So thank you very much for that opportunity to talk to you. Bill, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Ryle, and thank you, Terry and Charlie and Shirley. Now I'd like to move on to the introductions of the 2021 Praxis Award co-winners. I will introduce each winner separately, and they will provide you with an overview of their Praxis project. This year's co-winners, appropriately enough, are anthropologists who responded to natural disasters and effectively translated anthropological knowledge into action. Canadian anthropologist Jane Murphy-Thomas is an independent consultant practitioner and social anthropologist who has worked with UN agencies, NGOs, governments, and other donor agencies and consulting firms. She specializes in anthropological approaches and community participation in conflict and disaster-prone areas. She has 30 years of experience working in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Her project with the Pakistan Earthquake Reconstruction and Recovery Program, funded by the United States Agency for International Development, in collaboration with the government of Pakistan, demonstrated, and I quote, how even in conservative, heterogeneous, conflict-prone communities, people-centered approaches, along with strong construction management, can reduce the problems, allowing construction to speed along on schedule, while local capacities are also built. Thomas's project application is an excellent example of disaster anthropology in action, working at multiple geographic, social, and cultural scales. Jane will provide you with more details about the project and its impact, but I want to quote one juror's comments. The anthropological difference in this project is very strong. One of the key goals of the project was a social set of goals, to mobilize local people, prevent and handle conflict, and build on capacities for recovery and development. The entry stresses the importance of anthropology for truly participatory processes. Most requirements for participation in development projects are truly pro forma. And also for understanding and respecting local values and customs, understanding the social structure from multiple perspectives, sect, religious, ethnicity, and so on, and anticipating and dealing with land issues in the beginning. Congratulations, Jane, on being 2021 Praxis Award co-winner. And I want to quickly show the audience the as yet unsigned Praxis certificate. Please be patient and you will receive a signed framed certificate. Let me see here. Yeah, right there. There we go. Framed certificate from WAPA and an award check of $1,000. I do want to mention briefly that Jane's project will be coming out as a book in the near future. And so congratulations on that account too. And now please give your attention to Jane Thomas Murphy, co-winner of the 2021 Praxis Award. Thank you very much, Jane.
And now
You can start talking.
Bill, I can hardly add a single thing. That was an excellent introduction, covers just about everything about me. And I want to say thanks very much to you, WAPA, the committee members for Praxis, and the jurors. This is a tremendous honor. When I look over who has won this award in the past, for over so many years and so many countries, I am truly honored to have this recognition. And this thanks comes from all the members of the project team in Pakistan and in Kashmir. Now to just go directly over to the slides, I have bullet point slides plus pictures of a very photogenic area. And sorry, here. Okay, so first of all, I want to pose the big questions about this subject. As is becoming well known, disasters are increasing in number and severity around the world, which increases the need for reconstruction. But reconstruction is often fraught with difficulties that mean that construction never gets started, or it's so slow or abandoned. And one reason for that happening is that there is very ineffective local consultation, resulting in conflict, there are many other reasons, but that is very common, not just in Pakistan, but other places as well. So the question that I want to try to answer and show you what we did in this project is, so can participatory anthropological approaches make a difference? So as Bill said, I have, as a result of the project, was invited to write a book in detail about the project that we did. And it's also by Bergen Books, and it will be out in July. Very recent development is that it will also be available on open access. And it sounds like from the description of the Praxis book that these are two very complementary books. Whereas the Praxis book sounds like it's on several projects. This is minute detail, multidisciplinary angles on one project. I'll show that slide at the end again for you, anyone who would like to get that information. So the Pakistan Earthquake Reconstruction and Recovery Program, or PERRP as we called it, often it came about to follow the 2005 earthquake in northern Pakistan, where it was 7.6 on the Richter scale, a major, where major damage occurred. 73,000 lives were lost, over 3 million people made homeless, and just about all of the government infrastructure destroyed, including the schools and health facilities. The project that I'm talking about is in the center of the most heavily destroyed area, mainly in Kashmir and the Pakistan administered Kashmir. These are some of the children when we first arrived, still having classes and playing in the middle of their the destroyed school, using the stones like Legos. To look at the project that we're talking about, it's first of all necessary to really understand more about the geopolitical nature of the place. The problems that we were faced with was the enormity of the destroyed area, the remote mountainous locations. There was a tremendous shortage of qualified, reliable contractors, and the situation of conflict that we were in. On the east was the India-Pakistan conflict over Kashmir, and we were in Kashmir. And on the west side was were 100,000 foreign troops at the time, and the Taliban. Only about a 200-mile wide section of land between Afghanistan and the Indian border. Also in the communities, a long time history of conflict bubbling below the surface due to various differences in ethnicity, caste, sect, political alliances. And when the project arrived at the end of the first year, almost all the construction was already stopped due to all the problems above. So this is just a quick look at where it was the project, northern Pakistan, in the Pakistan administered Kashmir and the adjoining province in Pakistan. As Bill's already said, USAID was the client. It was a 6-year duration, $160 million budget. The idea was to build 77 of the largest high schools and health facilities. CDM Smith, an American engineering and construction firm, won the bid for the contract, and their role was to hire and supervise 20 Pakistani firms to design and build the buildings, and also for the project to include the communities. And how I, as an anthropologist, got involved in this, very unusually, USAID specified a socio-cultural expert had to be included in the construction project. Not only that, but that person had to be part of the four-person senior management. So along with the chief engineers and chief of finance was the socio-cultural person, very unusual. CDM Smith located me through CV Data Bank. They won the bid and I had helped them write the proposal. So I was hired to head up this program, and I hired local men and women, 12 of them, to form the committee that worked directly with the communities. The the vulnerabilities of the area that we right away had to work around was that the construction planners, managers, the engineers were mostly very reluctant to include the communities. At the beginning, that did change within the first year, but the communities and the traditional and conservative nature that they were had their own leaders who were usually the religious leaders, elders, and others, and again, but divided on the same lines I've already mentioned, by ethnicity, caste, political alliances. And they didn't have any endogenous proactive self-help groups that were representative of their divisions. And really big time problem was land issues, and all construction needs land, and land issues throughout Pakistan are a big problem. But every community has its strengths. Everywhere we identified, so who are the connectors? Who does keep the peace? And the other positive point was the consensus there was to rebuild the schools and health facilities. There was a very strong desire, enthusiasm. So we took a holistic approach. We treated the engineers like a set of communities by themselves, and so that we worked with them to figure out what did they need, what could they, how could they benefit by the community participation. And of course, with each community, had to analyze the blocks of power. Who were the connectors and dividers, and what was the underlying causes of a conflict? Almost always the social history of the area. And so what was needed? What do we need to do to prevent or solve it? And the priority cultural norms, which were language, and PERRP, which is the separation of sexes, and the traditional leaders, we had to keep them in the leadership position. The anthropological participation approaches we used were the typical ones, but we started this participatory process by joint exercise involving the engineers, the community members, the local government, the implementing agencies, other donors, and the project's own engineers, to ask them, so what goes wrong in construction here? What are the things that we need to do to prevent all that? And that really started the ball rolling. That really got a lot of interest in how to make all that happen. So out of that analysis, we had to, we developed the ways to integrate the social and the technical, a counterpart system, social mobilizers and site engineers working together with engineers at each site, joint analysis, and training, monitoring, and evaluation, the formal agreements between communities and contractors, who would do what, where, and when, communication protocols, lines of communication, grievance procedures, a code of conduct, and a participation index. Even we had community members, contractors, everybody systematically analyzing and assessing. So how is it, what kind of participation is happening, and to be able to quantify it. At the end, we published a report just on that. So there were some unique features about this project that really are relevant to this. Of all the hundreds of projects happening, this was the only one that included participation in anthropology as part of the senior management. It had it was the only one to have a social cultural team that was dedicated solely to working with construction. And it was the only one to lead communities to form representative committees, and was the only one that had a process to settle the land issues. So the results. It was a first that they had representative committees. That had never happened before. The conflict was greatly reduced. Out of all the 50,000 construction days, counting all the sites, only 8 days were lost to conflict. And so that construction, that allowed the construction to continue unhindered and built very strong local capacities. So we're not taking all the credit for what happened. It was very strong construction management that worked, that anthropology and the strong construction management worked, so that all 77 sites rebuilt were done on schedule. While all the other projects happening around us were still in confusion and not not completed or running into problems over and over. So in other words, there were mutual benefits between the participatory anthropology and building design and construction. Each supported the other to get ahead. So the takeaways on this: disasters are increasing in number, which means there's a growing need for reconstruction. And it's not only about bricks and mortar. Reconstruction and recovery can be enhanced by people's participation. And for that to happen, specialists are needed in the social aspects to be included with technical, because unfortunately, most donors and others still think of construction as purely bricks and mortar. But this project did work out ways for social, cultural people and technical experts to work together. By the end of the project, the engineers said they didn't know how they were going to succeed in next projects because they wouldn't have the social, cultural aspect. And but for change to occur like this, all mentioned above, the initiation of it seems to need to come from the top. Like in the case, this was USAID that specified this requirement. So now it's just a few pictures to show you how did things look in this area. This is a very photogenic part of the world. This is right near the line of control with India, a discussion on building a new basic health unit, religious leaders and elders, others having a discussion about what to do. And everywhere we had a vote taken in the communities. Did people agree to go ahead with this? This is what they call a willingness resolution, that they're going to go along with everything we've talked about and agreed to. A typical meeting held outdoors because there's no buildings left, and to discuss the project. And this is on the footprint of a school that was collapsed and the stones moved away. And then the workshops were held with bringing the various committees together every few months to do all kinds of activities, analysis, and so on. The most common thing we heard from community members was, no one has ever asked us to participate in anything before, and we really like it. We wish others would ask us to do the same thing. They were major problem solvers in this project. We involved the students in different ways. Like here's the launch of construction where a student speaker is, and she was the acting as the facilitator of the meeting. And in some places we could have mixed meetings of men and women, others with only women and men separate, such as this one. And as an extra, as a bonus thing, the committees got so enthusiastic they decided to start their own first library. So we had book fairs, and there were 100 libraries started at high schools because of this. A few construction pictures and still settling some land issues that invariably still cropped up. The smallest school was 8,000 square feet and above the clouds most of the time. The largest school, the only one that was in an urban area, that's 84,000 square feet. And one site where it had 3 schools built on one girls' school, primary, middle, and high school. And an inauguration event at a boys' high school where the boys lined up as an honor guard for the guests coming into the inauguration. And this is the team I'm talking about, the socials, cultural team that did all the work in the communities with their names listed. So just to wind it up, so again, to say thanks with to WAPA, the Praxis Committee and jurors for this wonderful award. And that is on behalf of the whole project team. Thanks very much. And just to show again the, oops, what happened to the last, back to the book slide again. I'm very interested to hear from people, any ideas they might have about this book, especially for opportunities to use it as course material. It will be published in hardcover, also in ebook, and just as of last week, open access. So if any of you have any ideas, there's my email. Please let me know. Thank you again very much.
Great, Jane. Thank you so much for a great presentation. What a wonderful set of photographs and just a great description of the project. So congratulations again on that and for your forthcoming book. I think everybody will be able to relate to the natural disaster addressed by the next really group of co-winners of the 2021 Praxis Award. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about, of course, the ongoing COVID pandemic, and want to introduce a project initiated by 3 anthropologists working with the California Institute for Rural Studies. So the co-winners of the 2021 Praxis Award include Dr. Dvera SAXTON, Associate Professor of Medical and Environmental Anthropology at California State University, Fresno, Dr. Bonnie BADE, Professor of Medical Anthropology at California State University, San Marcos, and founder of that anthropology department, and Dr. Lynn, the Philip H. Knight Chair and Distinguished Professor of Arts and Sciences, Professor of Anthropology and faculty in Indigenous Race and Ethnic Studies, Latin American Studies, and Women's and Gender Studies at the University of Oregon. They are the recipients of the co-winners of the 2021 Praxis Award for their project titled Collaborative Anthropology and the COVID-19 Farmworker Study. This is an ongoing project that is, and I quote, a collaborative, rapid response, research to action project collecting critical, missing information on farm workers' lived experiences during the pandemic. The Praxis Award winners will provide you with more details of this inclusive and growing project, but I want to quote a couple of jurors who wrote in their comments the following. The project provides an outstanding example of thoroughly engaged anthropology, carrying out collaborative, rapid response, multi-phase research to action with local organizations to inform policy and address the needs of agricultural workers in the COVID context. And another juror who stated simply that this project is an outstanding example of a collaborative approach. You see the theme here with collaboration and participation. The anthropologists were proactive and inclusive in building a community of practice in this project across 3 states, California, Oregon, and Washington. So let me quickly show the certificate that they will, let's see, right. Let's go down one. There we go. There's their Praxis Award certificate. They will receive signed copies, of course, as well as the honorarium, I hope before the meeting. So I'll stop sharing that and then ask you to please give your attention to Dvera SAXTON, Bonnie BADE, and Lynn, co-winners of the 2021 Praxis Award. I want to congratulate you and thank you. We look forward to your presentation. So they're not on, so now we'll just, I think, kind of maybe quickly, this is where they'll send, that'll come in. And so I'm going to conclude here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you all very much for a fascinating presentation. That project is not only important, it continues to grow in importance, and congratulations on being the co-winners of this year's award. So now, as we come to the close of the 2021 Praxis Award ceremony, I want to again thank all of my friends and colleagues who are here today and that helped produce this award ceremony. And I also want to make a quick pitch for the upcoming 2023 award. This will be the first award in the 5th decade of Praxis. So to do that, I'm going to quickly share the screen again. Let's see. That's not it. There we go. There's the 2020. So this just reiterates that the Praxis Award recognizes outstanding achievement in translating anthropological knowledge into action in the form of a single project or endeavor. Anyone who has an MA or a PhD in any subfield of anthropology can apply. We have an optional pre-application form that is due on July 1, 2023. So plenty of time to think about which of your projects you'd like to self-nominate. And you can find that pre-application form on the WAPA website, or you can reach out to me. The full application will be due in September 2023. And we're going to award the next one, I hope in person, at the 2024 SFAA meeting in beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico. So we'll all be there. Shirley will be with us.
Yay.
Yeah, if for further information, you can contact WAPA DC. I've also included my email address here at the bottom. So I will stop sharing this now. And again, thank you all very much for a wonderful evening and for the presentations. I hope you enjoy the rest of your annual meeting. See you in a couple years.
We represent the COFS Collaborative, which is thankful to the Washington Association of Professional Anthropologists for recognition of the COFS Collaborative's COVID-19 farm worker study with the Praxis Award. The collaborative is honored to receive this award, and thank you so much on behalf of the COFS Collaborative Project. The Praxis Award focuses on translating anthropological knowledge into action. Anthropology offers us tools of analysis and methods of inquiry to solve problems. This means purposeful research to affect change. Key to meaningful and relevant research that affects change is collaboration. The series of reports, press conferences, policy meetings with legislators, social media campaigns, meetings with the Health and Human Services and the Occupational Safety and Health Administrations, infomercials, and more that have resulted from the COFS Collaborative demonstrate how collaborative anthropological research methodology can affect change, empower communities as researchers, and open a pathway for ethnographic research that is relevant and sustainable. Here today, we share with you some of the examples of the results of the COFS Collaborative and the potential of mindful collaborative anthropology. When the pandemic hit in 2020, the California Institute for Rural Studies engaged in long-term research and advocacy with California agricultural laborers, facilitated the COFS Collaborative Project. Researchers from Oregon, Washington, and California united with community-based organizations from the Imperial Valley to Western Washington to investigate how the pandemic has affected farm workers. CBOs insisted that just another research project resulting in published academic papers would not fly with the farm worker community, who has been studied as workers, immigrants, and subjects for decades without notable change in their economic, social, and political status. The community sought policy change, infrastructural improvements on the workplace, appropriate labor violation reporting procedures, and responsive departments of health and state and county entities charged with labor, justice, and health for workers. Because the research is led by community interest and incorporates community members as researchers, collaborative anthropology is relevant. The purpose, design, implementation, field research, data analysis, write-up, generation of research products, and dissemination of community-specific information or the full process of intellectual endeavor from beginning to end involves collaboration cultivated through trust and respect. This project is a tri-state collaborative. As you can see here, we have endeavored on 4 separate phases. The first was a quantitative study, a rapid response study that was conducted right at the height of the pandemic. Phase 2 consisted of in-depth interviews. Phase 3, we worked with the CBO focus groups to better understand the situation from the perspective of farm workers. And phase 4 consists of follow-up pláticas, where we return to communities to report. We found that farm worker communities experienced job loss, loss of income, infection, unsafe and high exposure working conditions, lack of health insurance and sick leave, housing insecurity, deportation, and even death. The COF's collaborative farm worker study shows that farm workers faced uneven protections and uneven enforcement of COVID-19 rules at work, on top of job and wage losses, and that there were especially dramatic for women and Indigenous communities.
Our Oregon project was done with 12 community-based organizations, colleagues at Portland State and Oregon State. We did a survey of 300 farm workers with follow-up interviews, and about 25% of our participants are Indigenous. This is a map that shows you in Mexico and Guatemala where our participants come from. And we documented 29 different Indigenous languages from Mexico and Guatemala as part of the folks participating in our research. Oregon has about 174,000 seasonal agricultural workers and family members. About 50% of them are undocumented. And we have quite a few Guatemalan Indigenous folks among them. I'm just going to highlight a little story for a moment of Jose, whose mom, who picks berries, and he lost 2 months of work. His wife Maria did not work for almost 5 months as they struggled to find childcare. And they were also impacted by heat, cold, and wildfires and smoke. One of the things that we really focused in on and spent a lot of time talking about is a vacuum with information, a lack of information about worksite safety, public services, support programs, rent assistance. And this is not only like no information at all, but information that's not available, particularly in Indigenous languages. In terms of the impact of COVID-19, everybody lost wages, but women were more likely to report losing wages than men, and Indigenous women much more than non-Indigenous women. Women were staying home to take care of their kids and try to navigate them through school. As I mentioned, loss of work and wages. This is showing the difference between Indigenous and not Indigenous, but again, impacting Indigenous folks overall. These are just some pictures of some of the ways we've tried to impact policy. We shared recommendations and data with the Oregon Legislature, the Oregon Health Authority. We had a visit with US Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, pictured here with our team and with a couple of our CBO partners. We also held a Mesoamerican Indigenous Language Conference and formed a network out of this, which was attended by 150 Oregon State employees, teachers, school board members, many people, to learn about all of the Indigenous people in Oregon, specifically farm workers, and try to work with these folks in raising awareness in the different spaces that they work in. So,
in Washington State, the collaborative members took a different strategy approach, and instead of publicizing the data, use them to leverage things from food and agricultural industries and producers in the state to make sure that farm workers were better protected at their work sites. Additional findings about outbreaks and Washington Occupational Safety and Health Administration violations in apple packing houses facilitated the organization of a new independent farm worker union, Trabajadores Unidos por la Justicia, or TUJ. The findings in Washington from the COVID-19 farm worker study, which included surveys, about 300 surveys, and about 50 interviews, in-depth interviews, qualitative interviews, also supported community-based organization partners in channeling resources to support promotora networks and clinics in the vaccination campaigns. Moving into 2022, our collective has produced a Spanish language infomercial to be accountable to farm worker participants in the COVID-19 farm worker study, sharing back not just what we found, but the impacts that their stories have had on moving towards social change. And we also recently launched a community calendar that elevates the 12 demands of the COVID-19 Farm Worker Study Collective, which are serving as powerful organizing tools and reminders of what farm workers are worth and what they deserve, not just as essential workers, but as professionals and human beings.
Ustedes, los campesinos, son profesionales y expertos en sus campos y hacen enormes contribuciones a sus comunidades.
En colaboración con ustedes, los campesinos, exigimos lo siguiente:
reforma migratoria integral,
salarios dignos y justos,
programas de redes de seguridad, emergencia y desastres que sean accesibles para todos y financiados por el gobierno.
Una nueva agencia de salud y seguridad ocupacional dedicada a los trabajadores agrícolas.
Incluir a los campesinos en las decisiones políticas para abordar los problemas y promover soluciones.
Atención médica de calidad con cobertura sin costo que sea lingüística y culturalmente apropiada.
Vivienda segura, de calidad y al alcance garantizada.
Creación de espacios multilingües inclusivos en donde las lenguas de los campesinos indígenas sean valoradas y respetadas.
Más personal, apoyo y recursos en lenguas indígenas para las escuelas.
Acceso a Internet y equipo esencial como un derecho básico de los estudiantes.
Políticas de justicia climática para reducir la exposición al calor y al humo de los incendios forestales.
Reconocer el estatus profesional y la humanidad de los campesinos.
Le invitamos a mantenerse en contacto, compartir conocimientos e involucrarse.
And what's significant about these 12 demands is that anthropologists didn't invent them. They came directly from the mouths of farm workers and community-based organization collaborators in the COVID-19 farm worker study, who are the experts in their fields and know what's best for themselves and their communities in terms of what systematic changes are needed. And so some of the roles that anthropologists played in the COVID-19 farm worker study were not so much owners of the data as we are conspirators and collaborators. We supported in study design, in myth busting, engaged listening, mentoring and teaching future generations of rural researchers and CBO partner researchers. We shared tech and resources. We provided cover when it was not a good idea for CBOs to take the lead on releasing certain kinds of information. We were strategy partners, archivists, co-analysts, and we are also, each of us have long-standing relationships with the community-based organizations and in many cases, the farm workers involved in this study. While we are graciously accepting this Washington Association of Professional Anthropologists Praxis Award, we are just a small portion of this beautiful ecosystem of engaged and applied research for action that includes community-based organizations across the Pacific Coast, from California to Washington State, unified by the California Institute of Rural Studies, who initially launched the COVID-19 farm worker study in March of 2020. So I want to acknowledge our artists, Diana Morales and Michelle Collado Ochoa of Colato Connections. Feel free to contact us if you have further questions about the COVID-19 farm worker study, and please do visit our website to see lots of exciting examples of the media and policy engagement we've been involved with, as well as copies of the reports that we've written to date. Thank you again for acknowledging us for this award.